Hello, this is Mr. Inadequate. We are playing Suzerain. This is episode 5 of a very interesting game. Let me see if I have. Well, I have to hit continue first. A few days later. First, I would like to tell you that it's very hot today, very pollen in the air. I got a fan on if you can hear it. I'm sorry. Okay. Now, we got a lot of little news items. Let's do them first. Esterd. Police overburdened. We've been receiving reports of a lack of equipment and staff from the police forces in Estord. With the escalating violence in the city, the officers have been working 12-hour shifts to suppress the protests to no avail. The police commissioner of Estord has requested reinforcements and extra supplies of tear gas from nearby cities. Narbel. Police understaffed. Narbel is reported as currently too understaffed to deal with the ongoing political violence. Due to the small size of the police force in the city, they have been working nonstop, and a number of officers were sent to the hospital as a result of severe fatigue. Minister of the Interior Lulius Groff has been working with head of police Carl Grieser to address the issue. Suzerain. Young Swords Youth Wing leader dead after terror attack. Local Young Swords Youth Wing leader in Suzerain, Jacques Torin, has claimed responsibility for the organized attack in the Bludish market that resulted in the death of 7. His base of operations have been raided, and he was found dead inside with 2 bullet wounds to the back of the head. The scene was organized to make it look like a suicide. We were not able to get information about the location of other ringleaders connected to the terrorist attack. Okay. Suzerain. Illegal Ka-74 is seized. A catch with Rumford-made weapons included 46 Ka-74s, 2,854 bullets, 12 handguns, 27 grenades, and bomb-making equipment was found in the basement of an abandoned house in Suzerain. No suspects have been detained yet. Sorry, my lips are very dry. The investigation is ongoing to determine the origins of equipment. Okay. We're going to go here, 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 and then there. So, Ribery. Yeah, illegal firearms found in Communist Party office. Boy, we got an actual civil war going between the Nationalists and the Communists. The Ribery Police Department raided the local Communist Party office after alleged attacks organized by one of their members and found illegal firearms in the office. The building has been closed and 22 members of the Communist Party of Sordland have been detained. Jen. Weapons seized in Cultural Center. Local police forces report that a ward full of heavy military equipment has been seized in a Young Swords Cultural Center in Jen. Regulars of the place denied having any knowledge about the weapons. The owners of the building have been detained along with 13 other people. The police captured 22 rifles and 2 machine guns. The equipment belonged to the Swedish Armed Forces, dated 1929, but kept in very good condition. Military surplus. Okay, Volgan. Communist Party leaders suspected a bomb attack. At 11:48, an unattended bag in front of the NFP office in Volgan was destroyed by the police of suspicions of a bomb threat, which were then verified. Upon further investigation, the Communist Party leader of Volgan, Milt Henu, has been arrested in connection to the incident. So that's setting the scene for whatever this is. Oh, great. So first we got to read a report from Halsford. Reports of BFF activity in the Capitol. The chief of police, Carl Greaser, reports that two Bludish women with affiliations to the Bludish Freedom Front, BFF, have been caught in Halsford before they could execute a terror attack at a crowded rally. Both women are listed as wanted criminals and enemies of the state. The arrested women admitted their intentions to attack the National Front Party's rally at South Square when Casaro Gibboner gave his speech but rejected any connections to the BFF. Both claim they were acting alone. Police reports that the situation is under control and further investigations are underway. Okay. Dinner with the family at home. After a long day at the palace, I was finally home. I thanked Serge and walked through the front gates, nodding at the two guards as I went by. Even as I turned the doorknob, I could hear Deanna rushing down the stairs to greet me. I opened the door and there she was, standing in front of me with expectant eyes. "Papa, you're home." Lift and hug her. I lifted Deanna up and hugged her while trying to put the keys in the tray next to the entrance. She was growing fast. Lifting her up was no longer as easy as it once was. How was school? Boring. I liked my old school better. I put her down and her expression turned serious. "Papa, are the bad men gone?" Oh boy. It was only one bad man, Deanna. And yes, Deanna, yes, he's gone now. Okay, Papa. Deanna dashed down the hallway. "Mama, Papa's here." Monica appeared next to the kitchen door. She was wearing an apron and holding a spatula in her hand. Monica, "Deanna, what did I tell you? No running in the house." "Yes, Mama." Monica approached me and kissed me on the cheek. A tantalizing smell wafted from the kitchen behind her. "Darling, you should know. What do we have a cook for?" Monica, I felt like going grocery shopping, just like old times. And besides, she can't make your favorite like I can. You mean? Yes. Svabli. Svabli was a classic Hulser delicacy. Vegetables and creamy cheap cheese sandwiched between thin layers of dough. It was absolutely my favorite dish, especially paired with cabbage, a potent unfiltered wine from Bergia. It's my lucky day. What's the occasion? No occasion. I just wanted to cheer everyone up a bit. Her smile faded, and she lowered her voice so that Deanna wouldn't hear, especially after what happened at the ball. I'm worried, Anton, for you, for the children, and for the country. Deanna suddenly appeared next to us. Mama? Yes, sweetheart. I'm hungry. We'll eat in just a minute. Will you help me set the table? Anton, can you tell Frank to come down for dinner? He's been sulking in his room all day. Monica started taking out the china while I headed upstairs to fetch my son. Loud rock and roll music echoed down the hallway from his room. I caught a faint hint of cigarette smoke. Knock on the door. There was no response. Knock on the door again. Still no response. Bang on the door. The stereo in Frank's room clicked off. All right, all right. He unlocked and opened the door. What do you want? Hand over those cigarettes and join your family for dinner. You smoke, don't you? I'm old enough to do what I want. Oh, boy. I'm just asking you to wait until you're out of the house. Frank heaves a sigh, handed me the packet, and headed downstairs. I followed him to the living room. The table was prepared, and Monica was ladling food onto the plates. Come on, have a seat. It won't be as tasty if it's cold. As we started eating, the room went quiet. Monica's cooking was as delicious as ever, but I had the feeling that wasn't the reason nobody spoke. Monica was the first to break the silence. Say, did you know they refurbished the grocery store? I don't know if you remember the owner. He's been there every day for the past 30 years. Can you imagine doing the same job for so long? What if you were president for 20 years, for example? I don't want this country to suffer under another soul. Agreed, that must never happen again. Anyway, the grocer is a really nice person. He threw in some extra vegetables with my... Frank suddenly slammed his hands on the table, right on the china. Monica, Deanna, and I stared at him. So this is how it's going to be? We're just going to sit here like nothing happened? Dad, you could have been killed. Mom could have been killed. Any one of us could have died. Deanna's lower lip started trembling. Monica put her hand on Frank's shoulder. Okay. Frank, you know I would never let anything happen to you or Deanna, even if it cost me my life. I know, but still. Can you at least tell me if something's being done about this? It was real close, Dad. It was one rogue shooter. We were not even the target. But what if we were? Frank, said Monica, listen to your father. If your father says we don't need to worry, then we don't need to worry. Oh, that always works. Monica, you have to trust him. Monica turned to me. We all have to trust each other. Things calmed down a bit at the table. We finished our food in silence. Frank got up first and retreated back to his room. Monica lifted Deanna up and plopped her in front of the living room TV before returning to the table. She sat down across from me. Anton, he's still young. Okay. I know, but there's not much longer we can shield him from the ugliness of the world. He's scared, Anton, and frankly, he isn't the only one. I worry too, Monica. Things might escalate. I think they are escalating, to be truthful, but that's just the narrator's opinion. She got up, stood behind me, and massaged my shoulders for a moment before leaving me alone in the dining room. I sat alone at the table and drained my glass of cabbage. Had I been lying to Frank and Deanna? Was the threat to my family truly over? Time would tell. Okay, let's go to security briefing on the threats against Swordland. Yeah, I knew that was coming up. Hold on while I take a drink. Drink. It is hot, even in an air-conditioned room, because the wall to my right is on the west of the house, and the sun is now beating on it in the evening. And it's in the mid-90s, so my poor air conditioner is having a hard time. I arrived in front of the doors leading to the Situation Room. Today's security briefing was arranged in two parts, starting with internal matters and moving on to external matters after a short break. Sorry for the coughing. The Minister of Interior, Lilius Graf, and the Minister of Justice and Law, Nia Morgna, would join us for the first part, the law enforcement briefing. For the second part, the Minister of Defense, Josef Valencia, would join with a few high-ranking officials, including the Chief of the Armed Forces, Valken Kruger. I opened the door. Lucien, Nia, and Lilius rose from their seats. Lucien, sir. Nodded Lucien. I nodded. Lucien sat down. Everyone in the room sat down except for Lucien. He put on his glasses and went through the documents in front of him. Shortly after, he raised his head to address the attendees. Mr. President, ladies, we'll kick off today's meeting with the internal security briefing. I'm assuming everyone has already been over the agenda. We all have busy schedules, so without further ado, I will jump into our first topic. As we feared, the political atmosphere has worsened. Nia, the reports around the country indicate that tensions are rising as we feared. Lucian, what is the status on the Bernard Circus investigation? Lilius, I have received news this morning that the investigation into the murder of Bernard Circus has concluded. Please enlighten us. The more we know, the better. After further investigation and testimonies, we have confirmed the motive and also the events leading up to the shooting. A few days prior, members of the Red Youth initiated a violent attack on Young Sword's local leader in Jen. We believe the Young Swords then called for revenge, leading to the death of Mr. Circus. Since he often spoke against the Young Swords and national sentiments in the Assembly, he was a big target, not to mention his radical communist views. Okay. Political violence needs to stop. Lilius, yes, we've kept it at bay for so long, but it seems that there are now new triggers. Lilius handed over the report and pointed at a highlighted section in the document. The investigation revealed a very troubling fact. The funding sources of the Red Youth have a clear link to United Cantana. Oh, great. Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure? Elias, yes, we have found the cash trail. Follow the money. Several Red Youth members with ties to United Cantana have been detained, and the information extracted from them points to a preparation for a communist uprising in Swordland. Lucian, it isn't unusual for the superpowers to influence other nations, but I think this case is a little far-fetched. The left lacks popular support in Swordland. Nia eagerly lifted her hand. I motioned for her to speak. I went over the report in detail. It would be wrong to jump to conclusions about a clear foreign interference yet. United Cantana has humanitarian and cultural ties with many countries, including Swordland. Okay, I also don't want to jump to conclusions immediately. We shouldn't create a crisis with them. Lilius, nearly 3 decades ago, they funded General Ricard and tried to establish a communist dictatorship in our country. If it was not for Colonel Saul, we would have seen the real crisis. You're going to have to excuse me. They're ringing my phone. It won't stop. Please hold on. I'm recording. Okay. I'll call you back in. Okay, Lilius Graff. Nearly 3 decades ago, they founded General Ricard and tried to establish a communist dictatorship in our country. If it was not for Colonel Saul, we'd have seen the real crisis. She took a sip from her glass of water and continued. Lilius Graff, our police chief, Carl Greaser, has linked the funding channel to the United Cantana consulate in Benfey. Oh, side note, that was my wife. She would just kept ringing it forever. Anyhow, going on. Lilius, as we all know, the enemies of Swordland are many. We will also have threats inside the country. We need to remain vigilant. I'm trying not to be autocratic. I might play this game again as an autocrat, but right now, I'm trying not to be. It could be the wrong move. Nia, if we give up essential freedoms to purchase temporary security, we deserve neither freedoms nor security. This is debatable, says Lucian. But yes, we know what more security and surveillance caused to this country under President Sol. Lilius, let's not forget that President Sol, God bless him, brought stability after a long period of bloodshed and chaos. But moving on, our highest internal threat comes from an estimated 20,000 strong Bludish Freedom Front, led by the imprisoned Dulin Arg. They are a banned political organization, and now a militant force is trying to incite racial violence. Are they supported by our Bludish citizens? To some extent. Luckily, they couldn't attract a wide audience of Bluds, but they could potentially attract thousands if anti-Bludish sentiment spreads in Sortland again. Lilius pointed to page 3 in the report. Our intelligence intercepted 2 crates filled with weapons close to the Rumford border. They were filled with military-grade Ka-74s. We expect that more have been smuggled in since a group of Bloods were caught with these guns at a checkpoint not far away. Lucian, Rumford has been acting aggressively in the region for a long time. I'm not surprised they would attempt to weaponize the Bludish people against us. This is worrying, very worrying. Okay, can we make any direct correlations to blame Rumford? It was expected that Rumford would undermine us, but this is too far. We need to keep level-headed with Rumford. They're looking for reasons to take action. Yeah, that's the one I'm going to go with. We need to keep level-headed with Rumford. They're looking for reasons to take action. Oh yes, they will play dirty while we play nice. This is a battle we will lose. Yeah, this is grave news, but we must be careful not to stoke the fires of anti-Bludish sentiment. What is the second most important threat? Oh yes, it is the gang violence that is threatening the Nargis and England regions. 2 prominent organized crime families are at war, and the potential for bloodshed is real. Which 2 crime families? One is known as the Coronelli, and the other is the Skinner cartel. They used to be allies until a recent disagreement. Both are active in the cities of Narbel and Estord. Okay. Lilius, I trust that you can handle them. I'm doing my best, sir. Lilius Graff sighed deeply. I shall be honest with you. With our current capabilities, we may not be able to prevent the further arming of separatists while maintaining order in Berja, Nargis, and England. You promised to increase Southern security and law enforcement budget. You must keep this promise. We will keep to that promise, especially in light of all this information. Lilius, we will rid our country from separatists and violent thugs if you can support us. Yeah, I wish you would stop using the word thugs, Lilius. The real problem is corruption, which is fueling the gang violence, and is very likely the reason why these weapons are smuggled in. A higher budget could help us end that. Valid points. Two, your ministry must tackle the issue with persistence, Miss Morgana. Oh man, the pollen. We are, but it needs all attention it can get from our administration. Lilius and Neil are openly scowling at each other. Lilius turned her back to her notes. Oh, great. Lilius, well, this concludes the topics for the internal portion. Thank you for the updates, Mrs. Graff, Mrs. Morgana. Thank you for the overview. Yeah, have a good day. Lilius, until next time. The 2 ministers left the room. We took a short break before continuing to the second part. Upon invitation, Joseph Lancia, along with 3 high-ranking officials from the Ministry of Defense, walked into the room. One of the men was none other than General Kruger, the chief of the armed forces. Joseph made his way toward the table while the others stood by the door. Joseph, Mr. President. Joseph, welcome. I brought General Kruger with me due to the escalations on our borders. Excuse me. General Kruger stepped forward and saluted. He had a strong jaw with sharp cheekbones. His tall stature, uniform, and medals, combined with his deep and intense stare, made him look threatening. He was in his 70s, yet he had a bulky body that was a result of his commando training. Not only was he the second most decorated officer in Swordland, he was also the longest serving. Shake his hand. His handshake was firm, strong, and confident. Joseph tapped his foot impatiently. He seemed uneasy with the presence of another high-ranking officer in the room. Lucien, gentlemen, thanks for coming to this significant gathering. Let's begin. Joseph and Vulcan took their seats at the table while the rest of the officers stood by the door. Mr. President, the situation at the western and northern borders towards Rumford is very tense. We are observing deployments of divisions close to our border. Rumford has been acting increasingly expansionist in the past decades and also interfered in Agnolia, but now they had turned their sights on us. What is your current strategy? Joseph Lancia, patrolling close to the borders with our border force and keeping Army Reserve divisions near. Lucien, it seems like they want to increase the pressure both externally and internally. Vulcan Kruger, Mr. President, if I may? Please, General. Vulcan, the picture is becoming clearer. The latest information from the interior about the weapon caches, and now there is an active military buildup close to our borders. The entire situation was analyzed by our general staff, and our prediction is a future territorial incursion by Rumford. I have complete trust in the general staff. We will not let you down, Mr. President. The general staff is composed of the smartest military individuals. I require an increase in the military budget to enlist more soldiers. Only then can we stand strong against our enemies. The enlarged armed forces will hold them at bay. Joseph, Vulcan is right. We do need an increase in the military budget. Although we don't see eye to eye on exactly how to spend the budget, that much we agree on. Lucien, I have my concerns about Rumford too. We need strong allies to withstand such a superpower. They are our nemesis. Joseph, that is an understatement. Times are changing and war is coming, Mr. President, whether we like it or not. We must be prepared. Joseph continues, during the election you said nothing about focusing on our military. I ask you to reconsider and increase the military budget. The future and safety of Swordland is in your hands. As you said, times change, Joseph. We will see. A smile brought a glimmer of hope on Joseph's face. Vulcan, our forces would crumble under decrease, and Rumford would be much more compelled to exploit our weaknesses. Our country hasn't fallen to any invading force for 200 years. You cannot let it happen, Mr. President. Lucien, we should find regional allies like Vogsland or Lesbia to deter Rumford. There are several options on the table. Okay. These options should be considered. Joseph, they could be considered, but why pander to others when we can solve these issues ourselves? Vulcan, we have no true friends outside these borders. Everyone fell silent when a soldier entered the room and let Joseph Lancia know that a call had come through from the ministry. Joseph, excuse me, Mr. President. Joseph left the room to answer. A few minutes later, he entered the room again. His expression had changed. Uh-oh. Mr. President, there has been Rumburgian military activity close to the Narble border. I just spoke with the local commander. Vulcan, we should go to the ministry and get further updates from our branches. Vulcan, understood. Raising military readiness is the first call of action. If there is truly an extraordinary attempt, we will relay it to you immediately and wait for further orders, Mr. President. Your service is appreciated, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. President. You shall be updated if the situation escalates. Vulcan Kruger. Hail, Sordland. Yosef. Hail. They saluted and left the room. Rumford was already testing us, and the reports from the interior indicate interference inside our borders. Communists, nationalists, Bludish rebels, Rumford expansionism. What was next? Sutherland had always been a key piece in the chessboard of the global rivalry between Arcasia and United Cantana. But in the recent years, there was no such aggression from Rumford, not at these levels at least. All it takes is one tiny spark to start the flames of war. The phone rang. Rumford decided to close their consulate in Lock Haven. And that is where I'm going to leave it for episode 5. This is Mr. Inadequate playing Suzerain. I hope you enjoyed this episode.